Good afternoon, Declan. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. I really appreciate the invitation to come and speak to you today.
The pleasure is all mine, Declan, and thank you very much for joining me on the Business Spotlight today. So, Declan, could you tell me a little bit to start off with about yourself and your business, please?
Absolutely. Say my name's Declan Barry. I am the director of ExportExplore Limited. And what ExportExplore does is that we work with companies in North America and in the UK and Ireland to do business across the Atlantic in one direction and the other, either with North American companies wanting to come and explore the UK and Irish market, or Irish companies wanting to go in the other direction. We've been in that business now. The business is 5 years old this week, so we've had the birthday cake lit and blown out. But my background in the industry is somewhere between 15 and 20 years that I'm now starting to get scared to try and calculate.
Well, firstly, happy birthday for this week on your fifth birthday. That's a fantastic milestone. Congratulations on that. So if you think back to 5 years ago, or I guess just before then, what was the spark that led you to launch the business in the first place?
I think that it's like all things. I think with companies, you can either get into it because you've got some innovation or some new idea that you're trying to explode out of the gates, or else you've been in the industry for long enough and you just feel like it's time to take a bet on yourself. And that's where I was. I had some changing life circumstances. My youngest daughter arrived. I wanted to be around more. I wanted to be traveling less. And I wanted to have more freedom because we were getting into the world of school pickups, because I have an older child who was starting school. And I wanted to be able to drop them to school and pick them up and have all those lovely things that you do when you're at my stage of life. And working for somebody else was not an ideal way of doing that. So the circumstances presented themselves where I could go alone. And thankfully, my now clients agreed with me and they stuck with me. If they hadn't, it probably would have been a shorter story.
And tell me, what type of person or business would benefit most from your service?
Literally anyone who is curious or is actively working towards doing business abroad. So most of our work, in terms of our practice here in Belfast, and we're currently working remotely, but we're moving into a nice shiny office in Church Lane next week with a couple of other companies. It's very exciting. But any company who is looking abroad, is thinking about doing business abroad, and wants to understand what's involved in that, what are the risks involved in that, and what are the basics that they need to get their head around. The other side of that as well is that a lot of my day-to-day communication is to try and manage people's expectations around that process and kind of descale the level of fear around export, because we have some sensational companies here in Northern Ireland that should be exporting and selling their products abroad, but there's a fear and a nervousness, and a lot of my job, a lot of the pro bono work that I do is around sitting down with directors and owners and saying, you can do this, let's take the first steps.
What would you say has been the most significant lesson that you've learned as a business owner so far?
I would honestly say that it's okay that the odd mishap happens. I think, I think in the first year of the business, every time I spotted a typo in an email that went out, I was going to bed, fretting over it in case someone's going to judge me and never want to work out or work, with me again, because I put a typo or spelt their surname wrong in an email. And I think what I learned, and maybe that was something that came from the COVID experience, was that people were a lot more flexible and a lot more understanding if you're authentic with them and you put in a genuine effort and you do a good job. The small stuff just really isn't worth sweating. And I actually think that's, for anyone who's starting their business, for me, that was the most, once I was okay with the fact that mistakes might happen, as long as we could fix them, everything else was much more palatable.
And tell me, is there anybody in business or in your industry or generally that has made an impression that has inspired you at all along the way?
I think I've been really lucky, Peter, if I'm honest with you, since the early days of my career. People have been prepared to put their arm around my shoulder. I was very fortunate in the consultancy firm that I worked in. I was very fortunate that the chief executive and the directors were prepared to give me a chance to go out and play, if you like, to go out and travel and to do events around the world and meet customers around the world, which frankly, someone at 26, 27 years of age shouldn't have been allowed to do, but they let me do it. And I'm hoping that I repay them over time. But I think in terms of that mentoring, there have been a number of people who I wouldn't care to embarrass on this podcast, but they know who they are. But they're folks that have always been on the end of the phone on what I would call, kindly, oh shit moments at 11 o'clock at night when I get an email that I wasn't expecting or there's a problem. There are maybe 10 people in my phone book now that I know if I call them, they'll take that call. And not only that, they'll also follow up with me a week or two later and they'll check in. So I think that's something for people who are starting their businesses is and someone who I will name is very successful angel investor, Mary McKenna, who's featuring in the telly today because of the work she's doing with female entrepreneurs. She told me, I repeat this a lot as if it's my saying, but it was actually Mary. She told me that we are essentially collectors of people, and it's our job to try and find an answer within 2 phone calls. So you've got to make sure that your black book is fat and able to do it. So I repeat that all the time and pass it off as my wisdom, but it was actually Mary who told me that, and it's the most sound piece of advice that I ever elicited from anybody.
And if you could go back in time, hypothetically, and speak to your 18-year-old self, what sort of advice would you be giving?
Probably, and I'm trying to avoid cliche with this, but it would probably be calm down. When I was 18, I was checking the Belfast Telegraph for job adverts for jobs I wouldn't be qualified for until I was about 30. I was trying to work out what job I had to get the next job that I wanted. And in the end, none of that actually played out and none of it was there. But I put myself under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to try and achieve those things. So I think one thing that I would tell my kind of 18-year-old self is, it'll be grand as long as you go in and do an honest day's work and you build your network and you try to do right by those who put their trust in you, things will work out okay. And that's largely, that's everything.
Very good. And I can't believe we're now into autumn. We're into autumn now already, despite it being absolutely roasting outside. But if we look ahead to the remainder of 2023 and into 2024, what new or upcoming initiatives are you most excited about for your business?
Yeah, most people know me as the guy who works with companies in America. Most people who work with me locally know that. What we've actually started to do, and we have a workshop meeting about this in 2 days' time where we've got a whole day dedicated to it. What we've actually started to launch now is a suite of programs, mentoring, and really common sense stuff to help local companies who are lost in in all of the opportunity and tugs and distractions that you get out there in the industry today. So we're working on a project, which one I can say, which is around really simple selling. And it's just about how can you do things really simply, not get over fussed, not get over complicated. We're doing some work around workshops for decision making and for simple strategy. And we're doing some other work around managing the stakeholder relationship with business owners and their funders. We think that there's a suite of 2 or 3 products that we can bring together, which is really going to provide a real change around this. One thing I will mention on that is I'm also a board member of Antrim Enterprise Agency, and there's a big piece of work that we're doing there around encouraging the healthy entrepreneur. And they've put a lot of time and energy into that. And that whole notion all begins with management of your time, management of stress, management of tasks. And we're trying to find ways that take that out of the high value consultancy world, sorry to the high value consultants out there, and simplify things down to stuff that your average business can afford to explore.
And so you've celebrated your 5th birthday this week. Let's fast forward to your 10th birthday. So ExportExplore has celebrated its 10th birthday. You know, what does the business look like and feel like in 5 years' time?
I think in 5 years' time, as the world will, I think we'll have a much more digitally centered approach. 5 years ago, I spent half of my life on a plane. I haven't been on an aircraft in nearly 9 months recently. So I think that's changing. I think there'll be a lot more digital marketplace. But at the same time, the real challenge for folks like me and what we do will be, how do we take advantage of all this amazing technology, but at the same time, how do we help folks like you and me to actually garnish real meaningful business relationships with people with a significant reduction in that face-to-face? I spent a large part of my early career where most of my strategy was down to, I can take them out and I can have a bloody good night with them and we'll do business together. But the world doesn't work that way anymore. Apart from the fact that you can't travel to people anymore, people also don't drink anymore, and you don't.
It takes long to recover the older you get as well.
Yeah, I can't be out till 2 and then back on the stand at 8 o'clock in the morning like I used to be. So it really, I'm being a bit facetious, but the real answer is, I think we're going to be a lot more digital. I don't think the business is going to be significantly bigger. Our plan has always been, I have a number of associates who work with me, and we have a collective agreement that the only place that we want to go is deeper in terms of the relationships with our customer and increasing the value of our contribution. In my industry, like a lot of people's industries that are service-based, you don't get any rewards for quickly amassing scale. In fact, you just get higher overheads. So whenever something goes wrong, you just go down quicker. So we wanted to build a nice, robust, sensible business that takes advantage of the right technology. So that's the pathway we're on.
Super. Well, Declan, if somebody likes what they've heard and would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for someone to get in touch?
Easiest way to get in touch is you can visit the website exportexplore.com. You can, Declan at exportexplore.com is my email address. If they want to contact you, I'm more than happy for you to hand my contact details out to someone. I am one of these strange people that is not on social media apart from LinkedIn. So I'm there, but I'm on no other social media. And nor is the business, and that's a deliberate choice as well. So I'm really easy to get a hold of, really easy to speak to. And I do put aside a significant portion of my week for speculative conversations about what ifs, because that's where the best ideas usually come from.
Super. Well, Declan Barry from ExportExplore, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Thanks for sharing your journey and your story. And I wish you every success for the remainder of 2023 and beyond. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure, Peter. Thank you once again.